do. And the wonderful thing about Jesus is He's far more powerful than your GPS and your phone or in your car. He knows where you're supposed to be going. He can reroute and recalculate and get you there because He's in love with you. Now again, you need to grasp the fact He wants you to win because He's in love with you.
To succeed in life, we have to fight. That's why winners train. Spirit, soul, and body. We have to be ready. When the fight starts, all the theories are over. We either have it or we don't. We will get hit, but we get back up. We fight to win. Now, get ready for a tactical tip from Pastor Kurt.
Hello, I'm Kurt Owen, and I'm here with Biff. I'm not calling him Bob because I've got Bobs at home, and I don't want there to be any jealousy. Plus, he looks a little bit more like a Biff. So, Biffs are made, and thank you to the Port St. Lucie Athletic League for Police Athletic League for allowing us to use him. Let's talk about target areas when punching people. The reason that you get a Biff or a Bob is because it gives you a realistic idea of where you're hitting and how you're hitting. One of the things you got to realize a lot of times with people that punch, when you make a fist and punch, is that they just think you can just bang away at somebody. Actually, punches are only safe in front of the ear and below the eyebrows. If you try to go behind the ear or above the eyebrows, you're going to end up breaking your hand, which I've had happen a couple times. Anything in front or below those points, usually you're pretty safe. Not always, but that's your tactical tip. Hello, I'm Kurt Owen. Welcome back to Fight to Win. We're going to start getting into some things today that honestly we don't hear enough of in Christian circles. And honestly, because we don't hear enough of it, I was resistant to being saved when I was younger, and I'll explain. Every time I got around Christians, they're always talking about, basically in my mind, losing, right? And I don't like losing. I avoid it as much as I possibly can. And it almost seemed to me like when people were witnessing to me, when people were talking to me, when people were in ministry, is that they were losers and that they were okay with being losers. And really they portrayed the idea that ultimately God wanted them to lose and for them to be cool with it. And I knew right away that that's not going to work for me because if God is calling me to lose, I might be willing to do that, but I would never be cool with it, right? And so it was an issue for me. But then when I met Jesus and we got hanging out and I saw His Word, what He said in His Word, I realized that He's not really into losing. That's not His thing. And so I wanted to share with you a couple things, but I'm also going to share with you some things like a progression in my walk of some things that happen. First off, I want you to see this. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 2, and we're going to be in verse 14, okay? It says, "Now thanks be to God, who always leads us in triumph, and through us diffuses the fragrance of His knowledge in every place." Okay, again, thanks be to God, who always leads us in triumph in Christ, okay, in Jesus, in His anointing. Now, this is completely different because, okay, they did talk about triumph, but it was after you die, right? And I mean, I'm like, I got a lot of years left. I had even more years left then. I've still got at least another, probably close to 100 years left on my lifespan. And this is back years ago where I would have had like 120 or 130 years. And so when you start telling me, follow Jesus, lose for the next 100 years, but it'll be worth it when you die. But if I'm not dying today, that does not sound appealing. You understand what I'm saying? And so then I began to see this, and so they say, oh yes, you know, this is a hard life, but at the end, it'll be worth it all. And it's like, dear God, I've got years left. This might sound good to you because you look like you're about to kick it any day, but for me, I got life left. And then I realized that's not what Jesus was about at all, because this is the truth of who He is. He only leads in triumph, who always leads us in triumph. Okay? And I think that's important because you need to, if you're following somebody, you need to understand where they're leading you. And with Jesus, you need to understand. And this goes back to His love for you. Hopefully soon I'm going to be able to teach on believing the love that God has for you. But, you know, God is in love with you. So He has no use. When I was a kid, I used to watch The Lone Ranger, okay? And with Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels, okay? Lone Ranger and Tonto. Well, the way that the Lone Ranger became the Lone Ranger was they followed this guy into a blind canyon, and that guy had betrayed them, and then almost the entire Reed family was wiped out except for one Lone Ranger, right? And so he takes the vest of his dead brother and cuts the mask and becomes the Lone Ranger, and then goes and finds the one that led them into that blind canyon. Because who you're following makes a difference in how this fight turns out. Okay? If you're leading somebody that's going to betray you, if you're leading somebody that's leading you into an ambush by Butch Cavendish and they just want you dead, here's a tip. Don't follow that person, right? If this person is not out for your good, if this person does not have your best interest at heart, I really question whether you should be following them. You feel me? But when you start talking about the Lord, and you start talking about that He is completely in love with you, that He desires better for you than you desire for yourself. And quite frankly, this is another reason I didn't get saved, because I didn't know that. Okay? It's the reason that we've got daily devotionals and books on knowing and believing the love of God, because nobody explained to me God's motivations towards me. And even when they did, I didn't believe it, because, you know, John says knowing and believing the love of God. But one of the things is that why should I follow somebody who's leading me to loss? Now, I do understand ultimately He's God. And I mean, I get that, okay? But this tells me what His will is for my life. His will is triumph. His will is me succeeding. And it is not just when I die, because it says, and through us diffuses the fragrance of His knowledge in every place. That's not needed in heaven. That's needed now. That He's diffusing the knowledge of Him in every place. In other words, another word to say this is He wants to lead you in triumph, and He wants that smell of victory that's on you. He wants that to begin to attract people and to tell people who He really is. But He's leading you in winning. That's what He wants. People say, well, I've followed God for years and I'm not winning. Well, there can be a lot of reasons for that, but you do have to go back to His will in following Him is your success. Sometimes we have to come to the conclusion, have I really been following God, or have I been following religious doctrine? Because honestly, if I'd have gotten, when I got saved, let me back up. If I'd have gotten saved, listening to these yo-yos in some of these churches that I went to, my life would have been one of defeat. Because they were teaching me that God was into defeat. So even though, and I would have thought I was following God because I would have been following my instructors at the time. But when I got into the Word and I start seeing like, no, he's not really into loss. He's into winning. He likes winning. And so that's where He leads. Now, this is important because if all of a sudden you start losing, you have to question, okay, let me give you this illustration. You get in your car, you're following Jesus' car. And so He pulls on the highway. Now you know this highway leads to victory because that's the only place Jesus goes, right? That's the only destination He has is triumph, who always leads us in triumph. You feel me? Okay? So all of a sudden, you start losing. And I'm not talking about suffering setbacks. Setbacks is not losing. That's like a lot like getting hit in a fight, right? Just because you got hit in a fight doesn't mean you've lost. It means you suffered a setback. Because now you can just come right back and hit them 3 times and win, right? And you should, right? But just because you've gotten hit, just because you've gotten knocked down. I remember one time, I used to watch boxing all the time, right? And I still watch it from time to time. I just don't think there's the personalities and the talent today that used to be in days of old, okay? But it was interesting to me because I remember watching this fight. It was Tuesday night fights. I think it was on USA Network or something like this. I was a young guy. So I'm watching this fight. And these 2 guys are going at it. And there was no 3 knockdown rule. If you're not familiar with boxing, they have a rule in some places, or if it's agreed upon, if you get knocked down, the fight is over no matter what. It doesn't matter whether you were completely conscious at the end. If you get knocked down 3 times in the fight stops, okay? It's to keep people from getting hurt. So, but there was no 3 knockdown rule in this fight, which was a good thing. Because these 2 guys, this one guy gets knocked down every round, 2, 3, 4 times a round, nearly every round. To the point, I'm sitting there watching this fight thinking, ref, why don't you stop this fight? Now, to the guy's credit, he jumped right back up. And every round, every time the bell rung, he'd run out there. Now, is he suffering setbacks? Yes. Is he getting knocked down? He is so far behind on points, it's ridiculous. To the point that me sitting there thinking, ref, come on. This guy, it's terrible. But it was about the 6th round. I think it was an 8-round fight. About the 6th round, this guy who has been knocked down every round, up at 4, because I remember it one time in the round, it was 4 times in the round, because I was thinking, this guy doesn't have a 3 knockdown rule, and why are they doing this? And evidently the ref had been with this fighter before, because I think it was the 6th round, that man comes out and knocks the other guy down 1 time, but he knocked him smooth out. He's so far behind on point. He has been knocked down minimum of 6 times, right? He's been probably 8, 10, 12 times in this fight. And he comes out there suffering all these setbacks. And you know what I loved about him? Because even in the 6th round, he came out still swinging for the bleachers. It didn't matter to him how many times he got knocked down. I'm going to knock this joker out. And he did. Because he came out every round fighting to win. So see, I'm not talking about in life that you haven't been knocked down. I'm not talking about in life you haven't had setbacks. But you need to get up and come out swinging, because you are guaranteed success if you're following Jesus. You're guaranteed that there's going to be a round coming up. I'm going to hit this joker 1 time, and he's going to sleep. He won't be standing up. Because that was the funny part. He hit him. There was no 10 count. He hit that joker so hard. I mean, he is asleep. The ref didn't even bother. He's just laying on the canvas out. Waves the fight off by a man who'd been knocked down round after round after round. You know, if you've been knocked down in life, it is time to get back up. Ministers, if you've been knocked down in life, it is time to get back up. If you have been rejected, if you have been weighed low, if you feel as though you don't have your legs underneath you and you just can't fight another lick, I'm telling you, you need to make up your mind that Jesus is only leading you into triumph. And maybe there's some times in the past that you have not followed Him like you should. You followed something else. You followed religious doctrine. You followed your feelings. You followed board members. You followed something else. But you need to come out swinging again. And don't be tentative. Swing for the bleachers. Now, this is not the only time. Now, again, let me just be clear. God is interested in triumph. And notice, because that's the only place He leads. Always leads us in triumph. You know, this word always, you know what it means? Always. It means every time. It means every time we get in the car and are following Jesus, we know what road we're already on. We already know the destination. Triumph. Now, if you're not winning, and again, we're not talking about setbacks, you got to ask yourself this: have I pulled off the road? Did I take an off-ramp? Because this looks suspiciously like losing. And this isn't where Jesus leads. You know, even, I think it's funny, even with the Israelites coming out of Egypt, do you know that the Lord laid a trap for Pharaoh? It says he had them wandering around to the point Pharaoh says, those guys are confused. They don't know where they're going. And the Lord said, well, I did it. I want him out here because I'm going to whoop him. I want him out here because I'm going to crack him. I mean, it's great. He lays a trap for him, and everybody thinks they're lost, and then boom, Pharaoh's down. It's over. His army's wiped out. That's just cool to think of the Lord that way. Man, he is a warrior. But this is what you've got to understand. If all of a sudden you're looking around at loss in your life, you need to go back to him and say, sir, I don't think I'm following you. And I don't think I'm following you because these are not the results you promised, sir. And so, Lord, I need some help. I need to get back on the right path. I need to make sure I'm back on the right road. I need to find the on-ramp. Somewhere I took an off-ramp, Jesus. I need to find the on-ramp. I need to get back on that road, sir. What do we do? And the wonderful thing about Jesus is he's far more powerful than your GPS in your phone or in your car. He knows where you're supposed to be going. He can reroute and recalculate and get you there because he's in love with you. Now, again, you need to grasp the fact he wants you to win because he's in love with you. Now, we're not going to be able to get too deep into this today, but this is not the only time. Before I go here, one of the reasons when people were diffusing the knowledge of God or the fragrance of God, their knowledge of God when I was younger, I wasn't buying into salvation because you're losing. The fragrance I'm smelling is, you smell like a loser. You smell like a quitter. So you want to know what? I didn't like the smell, so I wasn't willing. I didn't want it. People say, you need to be a good Christian soldier. Nobody wants to join a battle. They're told that we're going to get whipped. That's just stupid. Who would join up, right? But that's not what Jesus is saying. He's saying, join me. Join me. Now, let's look at this. With me to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And we're going to spend a great deal of time here as we go along. It says in verse 24, and you need to go back and get this in context because Paul's saying some interesting things about this. Do you not know that all those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you obtain it. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? In other words, you're not supposed to just get in the race to run. You're supposed to get in the race to win. Not only does Jesus have an attitude of, I want to lead you in triumph, notice here that he has this idea. Paul is sitting there telling you, hey guys, it is not enough just to get in the race. Everybody runs in the race. You need to run in such a way that you win. There is a prize at the end, and you need to run in such a way that you win. You know, I remember several years ago, somebody had watched one of our TV broadcasts, and he stops by the office, and I happened to be there. He wanted to talk to me. So he comes in, and we're conversing, and he says, how did he start? He says, well, I think we talk too much about being victorious. I think we talk too much about Jesus. I think we talk too much about victory and winning. And really, we should just be content to just know Jesus and to follow Jesus. And he said, and I said, well, I understand that. I said, I do follow Jesus, and I do know Jesus, but I'm also planning on winning. And he says, I just think that's a mistake. I think there's too much emphasis on that. I said, well, here's my problem with that. That's not Jesus' attitude. That might be your attitude, Joker, but you're a yo-yo. Jesus is, he already told me his attitude. I like to win. I want to lead you in triumph. And listen to what Paul's saying that Jesus' attitude is. Dude, don't just get into run. You've got to run to win. It is not enough just to show up. It is not enough. We're not going for a participation trophy. We're going for winning. We're going for victory. Do you understand that if the idea is to win the race, you've got to run longer, stronger, and faster than everyone else in the race? Do you realize that one of the first things in order to win is that you have to make up your mind, I'm supposed to? If you have the idea of being a victim, you will be. If you have listen, because if you look like hamburger, you cannot be surprised if somebody wants to take a bite. You cannot be surprised. And there are too many people walking around in life blaming, listen, for any failure I have, I'll just tell you right now, it is nobody's responsibility but mine. No one's. It is definitely not God's, because He only leads me in triumph. It is not the devil's, because ultimately he is a defeated foe been brought to naught. He's more like a pimp, right? He can solicit you, but the only way you end up in sin is if you decide to go with him. So if I end up there, it is not anybody's fault. It is not the people around me's fault. If I end up, well, I was given bad advice. Well, Joker, you're the one that took it. If I'm given bad advice and I take the bad advice, I cannot blame my advisor. Because see, when I got saved, I actually was given an on-board advisor. Somebody that was already had Jesus Christ made unto me wisdom, righteousness, and sanctification. So I should be able to recognize whether the counsel I'm being given is what wisdom or not. That's not their fault. That is not their fault. That is my fault. Honestly, this goes into a little bit about my character is that I don't like team sports. Okay, I just don't. And I wasn't raised to really, my family all liked football and stuff, but I honestly, after some things that happened to me as a child, and maybe we'll talk about that. I'll just tell you briefly, when I was sexually assaulted when I was a kid, and I was sexually assaulted when I was 5, began training sometime after that. And one of the reasons I began training is I realized is that I couldn't depend on anybody else to help me, which led me to have an attitude of I don't like team sports. Okay? And I'll just tell off on myself. I just don't, my wife thought she was going to be the perfect wife because she loves football, right? She loves it. She understands it. She can explain it, all this other stuff. And then she marries a man that couldn't give a rip about football. And guys, I'm not cracking on you. I admire the tenacity. I admire all that. And I believe in all of these, I'm good with it. But I remember one year I was trying to get into football. And it was when the Patriots, and I don't want to hear about the Patriots cheat. I don't care about any of that. I'm just telling you about what I did, okay? Just lay off. So the Patriots remember, they were having a winning season like the Dolphins had evidently. And I know that because that's what they said. And I would tune in for the last few minutes of the Patriot games to see if they were going to win today. And I would watch and they're winning. They've won every game. They've won every playoff game. And so I decide that I'm actually going to pay attention to the Super Bowl that year. Okay? And so Tom Brady, and it's down into the wire, and Tom Brady throws a pass. And he throws it, and it's coming in, and the guy is in the end zone. It is coming perfectly to him. And I'm sitting there admiring the skill of a man being able to throw a ball that far and drop it on a dime like that. I am thinking, wow, that is a tremendous talent and ability. See, I don't disrespect football players. But then the dude let it pass through his hands. And he didn't get it. And I shut the TV off and I turned to my wife and I said, that's why I don't play team sports. I don't like that because there's too many people in life that want to sit there and blame other people for their shortcomings. And I would rather fight, whether I win or whether I lose. I need to understand that this is my responsibility. So if you're sitting there and you're saying because of the color of my skin, because I'm black, because I'm white, because I'm Asian, because I'm dumb, because I'm smart, because I'm short, because I'm too tall, whatever your excuse is, it is time to eliminate it because Jesus still has a path of triumph for you. He didn't say, I'll always lead you in triumph as long as you're not too tall. I'll always lead you in triumph as long as you're not black. I'll always lead you in triumph as long as you're not white. By the way, if you're a child of God, you are neither black nor white. You are just a child of God. This is just a suit, and quit majoring on the flesh. We were never supposed to identify with the flesh. We were supposed to identify with the heart. Now, the thing of it is quit blaming. I don't have the education. So what? I'm not smart enough. Doesn't say, hey, I can lead you in triumph as long as you're smart. I can lead you in triumph as long as you're good looking. I can lead you in triumph as long as everybody likes you. I can lead you in triumph as long as, now I'm going to get into it, as long as your mama and daddy were good to you. I can lead you in triumph as long as you don't come from a broken home. I can lead you in triumph as long as, fill in the blank. Quit making excuses. Your destiny is in your hands. People say, well, my destiny is in Jesus' hands. No, it isn't. Because if Jesus had control of your destiny, you wouldn't have made some of the dumb decisions you've made already. You have to focus on Jesus. And when He says left, you say left. But one of the reasons that you've messed up is not what's happened to you. It's because you haven't focused on Jesus and got so intently to His voice. That's one of the reasons that our free offer this month is a book called How to Hear the Voice of God More Accurately in 31 Days. And that's absolutely free to you because when you follow Jesus, triumph is the only end. We're going to talk more about this next time. I'm Kurt Owen. Thank you for tuning in to Fight to Win. Jesus is risen. Victory is assured.
To receive your free gift from Kurt Owen Ministries, visit our website, kurtowen.com, or call us at 1-800-215-0428.
Hello, I'm Kurt Owen. You know, we were talking about fighting to win. In other words, one of the things you've got to realize, if you want to fight to win, you've got to make sure you're in the right fight. And part of fighting the right fight is knowing what Jesus called you to do. Part of doing that is being able to hear His voice. That's the reason we have this free product for you, 31 days to hearing from God more accurately. Notice it's not just hearing from God, but hearing from Him accurately. This is a free gift to you. It is a daily devotional that you can read and give you some practical exercises. Please contact us.
Not your typical minister, Kurt Owen left a successful career in private investigation and executive protection for the ministry over 20 years ago. His simple, practical application of God's Word will reveal how much God loves you and give you the ability to walk in victory with Jesus.